now.
Thank you for joining us here at the First Alert Desk on Atlanta News First Plus as we bring you Catch Up Quick, where we catch you up on the top stories making headlines in and around Atlanta. To start in downtown Atlanta, where a shooting investigation is now underway at a busy intersection. Atlanta News First reporter Sarah Hammond is at that scene. And Sarah, what's changed?
Really, in the last few seconds, is this road is now reopened. It's been closed for quite a while, but we just got some new information from Atlanta police. We now know that 2 men were shot, both in stable condition. They were conscious when they were taken to Grady Hospital. Atlanta police also tell us that 4 men have been detained. Charges are pending as the investigation continues. But to give you an idea, we are in front of Magic City, across the street from the Garnett MARTA station, right in front of the Greyhound bus station. We spoke to a man named Paul Crump, who says he was dropping his wife off at the Greyhound bus station here when they heard multiple gunshots. Take a listen.
And I heard bam, bam, bam. We just pulled into the station and we ducked. And we seen like sparks coming that way. And we seen a guy laying down on the corner right there.
Now, we're still waiting to learn more from Atlanta police about what led up to this shooting and a little more of the details surrounding the circumstances here. We'll keep you updated when we do. But the most important thing here right now in terms of traffic is that this intersection has now reopened. Police have taken down that crime scene tape, so cars are now moving through. Live here in downtown Atlanta, Sarah Hammond, Atlanta News First.
All right, thank you so much, Sarah. And moving to this story, we first broke to you yesterday. 2 Hantavirus patients arrived in Atlanta. Health experts want to assure you it is not the next COVID. Doctors and the CDC are racing to contain the outbreak while also easing fears here at home. We're going to send things out to our reporter, Don Shipman, with the latest.
Those 2 patients are described as a couple. Now, they got off that plane and right into one of the most specialized hospitals in the world. Emory says that they are ready. And you can take a look right here. You can see them getting off that plane at Hartsfield-Jackson Atlanta International Airport, and take a look at all of that protective gear covered in head to toe. A Grady ambulance brought them here to Emory University Hospital, where trained staff were waiting. Now, here's what we know about their condition. One of them is showing symptoms, the other is not. Emory says it is working around the clock, coordinating with state, local, and federal partners, including the Atlanta-based CDC, to make sure that what happened on that ship does not spread here.
We understand that this is an uncertain and stressful time for the passengers. They've gone through quite a bit, and we're trying to help them. And this is a priority for us. But the big priorities for us are the safe and healthy return of the passengers, but also safe and healthy American communities. And this is what we're working towards.
And at this point, it's not clear on how long that couple will stay here at Emory University Hospital. And here's what we do know. Health officials re-emphasizing the fact that there is little to no risk to the general public, saying that they're not taking any chances, and neither is Georgia. We're here at Emory University. Don Shipman, Atlanta News First.
Yeah, thanks, Don. And that rare rodent-borne illness killed 3 passengers and sickened others. Global health officials saying the risk to the general public remains low. Now, it can spread person to person, but doesn't spread very easily. We spoke with board-certified entomologist Dr. Jim Fredericks on what you need to know. Fredericks, you specialize in understanding these types of things. So my first question to you, hantavirus is a rodent-borne virus. So what are the most plausible exposure scenarios we're talking about exposure happening on a cruise ship like this?
Yeah, so thanks for having me. It feels unusual, this particular case. And I have to preface this entire thing with, I'm not a physician, I'm an entomologist. And so my expertise is in pest control, including rodents and the rodents that carry hantavirus. In the U.S., you are typically going to have exposures through dust particles that have been contaminated with the infected urine of the deer mouse or the white-footed mouse, and sometimes also the cotton rat and the rice rat in the southeastern U.S. In South America, where it sounds like this has this originated, the rice rat is one of the most common vectors for this particular disease. Um, the particular Andes strain, according to the CDC, is one of the few that actually is transmissible from person to person. So, so it could very well be that there has been person-to-person transmission after someone has contracted this from a rodent.
Can you talk to me about the typical incubation period? I mean, we're looking at this cruise ship, obviously, the expected length of time from onboard to onshore exposure.
Yeah. Again, that's a particular area that I'm not necessarily an expert in with regard to the disease aspects of hantavirus. But in terms of when people are exposed to the particles that have virus associated with them, dust particles, for instance, it could be as little as a few days to a week before symptoms might be seen.
What do you want people to keep in mind as far as sanitation, ventilation, things like that? You don't often expect your cruise ship to have rodents on board, but that is also something that comes with the territory.
Certainly. And when it comes to cruise ships, I think that, there is always the possibility that rodents have infested a cruise ship. Just like many other pests tend to find a way. At home, you can focus on, especially this time of year when people are getting out and maybe doing some spring cleaning in sheds or in the garage. These areas might very well have been infested with things like the white-footed mouse that can carry this disease. And so when you're doing some cleanup in there, don't use a leaf blower. Don't even use a broom if you find some droppings in these areas. It's good to use a bleach solution and then wipe or mop these things up. You definitely don't want to have airborne or aerosolized particles that you would breathe in, because that is the primary mode of picking up this particular virus.
Yeah, what do you think is the main, misconception that people have when they read a headline like this?
Well, I think, one of the things that that folks sometimes don't realize is that, rodents and pests in general can cause disease. They're actually public health threats. Oftentimes people, associate a mouse in the house, or maybe some ants on the counter as being a nuisance. But actually, there are real threats to not only health, but also our food and our property. And so whenever we're dealing with pests, I always think it's best to call a pro and get some help. It's not a do-it-yourself project.
And let's say you can't get rid of the pests overnight. Maybe you have some immunocompromised or, relatives that you're concerned about having this level of exposure to rodents. I mean, what options can people take?
Yeah, well, it's true, because typically pest control is not going to take place overnight. It often is a process, and that process begins from the very start with protecting and preventing against these pests. And so the best defense is prevention. And so when we're thinking about rodent prevention, it's important to seal up any hole that's larger than a dime, any gap that's wider than a pencil, like a quarter inch, to keep these rodents from getting into the house in the first place. And so these particular rodents that are going to be carrying hantavirus in North America are going to be like the deer mouse and the white-footed mouse. Deer mouse is going to be in the west, the white-footed mouse is in the east, and they will typically get into places like sheds or garages. They aren't always getting into homes. That would be the house mouse, which is not a concern.
It is interesting to differentiate between the two. I know we don't always see our rodents, and sometimes there might be evidence of them in our homes or in our surrounding areas. What types of evidence markers do you look out for?
Sure. When it comes to the symptoms or the signs of a rodent infestation, the first thing that people always note are droppings. Rodents leave behind lots of evidence in the form of droppings, and they'll leave those droppings in areas that they're frequenting. Typically, rodents are going to try to stay hidden, try to stay out of sight. And once you start seeing these droppings in areas where people are frequenting or in areas out in the open, that typically is going to tell you that you have an infestation that has gotten to be pretty large. But in addition to droppings, you might also see the evidence they leave behind in terms of gnaw marks. Rodents are notorious chewers. This is both rats and mice. They will chew and chew and chew. And so that might be on food packaging. It might be on wood. They might chew to enlarge a hole where they're entering the structure. But then, and this is really terrible, but they will also chew on wires and walls and can cause fires in homes. And so I really can't stress enough that rodents are not just a nuisance.
Yeah, there's certainly a health concern, as you said. I think at the start of this stream, we talked about how summer is just around the corner, travel is ramping up. There's a lot of folks that like to take cruises around this time, and maybe they're reading this headline and they're starting to feel a little bit helpless because you get on the cruise and then you're there. You can't really do much about it. So what's your message to those folks?
Yeah, I think that the message would be to when you arrive, whether it's a cruise ship or a hotel room or it's it's a rental home at the lake, to do an inspection, to simply take a close look at your surroundings. And if you do identify that there are signs of a pest infestation, whether it's rodents or it's bed bugs or any other pest, to request to be moved, to simply be moved to a different room, to a different place, and that can go a long way towards protecting yourself and your family.
And most companies will comply if you tell them you saw a rodent and you'd like to move to a different room.
Yes.
I imagine. Dr. Fredericks, thank you so much joining us with the National Pest Management Association. Any final thoughts or words before I let you go, sir?
Well, the one thing that I would encourage folks to do is to remain vigilant, to continue to keep an eye out for pests in all places. If you want to learn more about pests and how to prevent them, you can visit pestworld.org.
And a little bit of an explanation, a better understanding. All right, let's take you to this next story, talking about I-285. If you haven't heard the news, here's a heads up for you. We have the new date set for a complete shutdown of I-285. That closure impacting every lane between Cascade Road and MLK Jr. Drive will now happen this weekend. So really important, if you take any of those routes this weekend, you are going to want to plan ahead. GDOT slammed the brakes on the project at the 11th hour this past Friday, and the rescheduled closure will now start this Friday night at 7 and last until Monday morning at 5 a.m. Traffic expert Taylor Tucker breaks it all down.
A big traffic alert headed your way this weekend that you need to know about. It's on the southwest side of town, 285 between MLK Drive and Cascade. Your northbound and southbound lanes will be blocked off for a continuation of a project that they've been working on for quite some time. Let's talk timing, because your northbound and southbound lanes will be blocked starting at 7 p.m. Friday and won't reopen until Monday at 5 a.m. You will have detour routes open and available for you, like Langford Parkway and MLK, but think about the spillover traffic. We expect heavy traffic across Metro Atlanta on the downtown connector and along I-20. We'll keep you in the know throughout the week, and this weekend, we'll be on the lookout for this traffic alert. Your traffic tracker, Taylor Tucker.
All right, thanks so much, Taylor. And Atlanta taking this time to remember two Braves legends, Ted Turner and Bobby Cox. Last week, we reported to you the death of Ted Turner. Over the weekend, we told you about the passing of Bobby Cox. Well, tonight, the team honoring the lives of both the former owner and legendary manager, as the Braves are back at home for the first time since their passing. Turner, who also was the founder of CNN, passed away. He owned the Braves from 1976 up until 1996, the year after their World Series title. His broadcasts helped the Braves become America's team. And the Braves will also remember, as I mentioned, legendary skipper Bobby Cox. The Hall of Fame manager died over the weekend at the age of 84. Now, Cox took over the team for a second time in 1991, taking the team from last in their division to an appearance in the World Series. Atlanta News First is honoring Cox's legend tonight at 6 with a special half-hour program dedicated to his contribution contributions to the game. That will lead us right into our coverage of the Braves' home game against the Chicago Cubs, which you can also watch on Atlanta News First starting at 6:30. But you are with us here on ANF Plus, so make sure you join us at 6 for that special as we honor and remember the life and legacy of Bobby Cox. Now, as the community mourns the deaths of these two passionate men who gave so much to the Braves, Atlanta News First sports anchor Connor Hines sat down with the sculpturist behind the famous Bobby Cox statue. Take a listen.
I guess your overall reaction when you heard the news of his passing and the passing of a guy who, you kind of helped immortalize outside the ballpark.
Yes,
there.
absolutely. Meeting Bobby Cox was a big thrill for me as I'm not just an artist, I am a historian in my role as an artist. I do respect the history and the accolades of the athlete or manager who did their job. And Bobby was unique for me because I met him at the park and he went out of his way to give me a personal tour of the brand new stadium. That's when I met him. So that's like 1 in a billion who will do that for you because, really, they just usually brush off the artist or they're polite and they shake your hand, say thank you. But he spent time with me, quality time. He brought me in the dugout. It was surreal. And I actually struck the pose on the steps, just joking with him, and he was laughing with me. It's great. It's really good. So my point is that he was not just a great leader. He had humility, and humility is probably one of his assets.
Yeah, without a doubt. I want to talk about the pose because that's the first thing everybody loves to talk about the statue, because that is the iconic Bobby Cox top step of the dugout. That's where he always was. What kind of went into making that decision to make that the way you wanted Bobby Cox to be remembered?
Well, we're always looking at pictures of him doing his job, but the big thing for me was trying to find that picture that really made him look like the captain. The captain of the ship of those great teams. Those teams were unbeatable, so dynamic, and his intensity added to that. So I wanted to show that, he's watching over his kids, and wanting to win and being the great captain, the strategizer, and it's really, really cool.
No, I think it's a great look outside the park for sure. Talking about all the other work you've done, what kind of pride do you take in creating, a permanent remembrance for so many, figures who have passed on, specifically Bobby Cox, of course.
Yeah.
We saw and continue to see bouquets and signs and flowers and so many different, points of remembrance right there at the foot of your statue. I mean, what is that like for yourself as an artist?
Well, when the sculpture does more than decorate the landscape, we've accomplished something both intellectually and spiritually fit. And if I can do that with a piece of art on the landscape of a great city like Atlanta, we've done a service to the city that makes me feel proud.
Yeah, very cool. I think we're going out there for the game tomorrow night, and there's going to be so much more stuff around the statue already. So
yeah.
It'll be very cool.
Yeah, really, really neat. Doing the statue of Dominique Wilkins too is a fantastic experience. What a great guy as well.
Yeah, yeah.
Could be the best basketball statue in America. Oh, wow, I just threw that down.
I'll put that one in there.
Yeah.
You've covered so much ground in your career. I'm curious if there was anything special or unique about the Bobby Cox statue?
Yes, there was, because at the same time I was interacting with the great Skip Bertman, who is a huge fan of Bobby. And if you look at Skip's statue, you'll see a big similarity. So the Bobby Cox statue influenced me to make the Skip Bertman statue, the Skipper, as well.
Okay, very cool. How did that kind of all come together then? It was just the kind of like...
Well, at LSU, I have 7 statues at LSU. Shaq, Bob Pettit, most underrated Hawk ever, probably, maybe the greatest Hawk, but that was St. Louis. and Simone Augustus doing a jump shot, Pistol Pete throwing the ball behind his back, Billy Cannon running with the football with a shot put on his base because he was an NCAA champion shot putter and sprinter. And then the great Skip Bertman, one of the neatest guys I've ever met in all of my travels.
Yeah.
Baseball managers are like a whole different type of coach, a whole different type of breed. They're my favorite people I've met in my travels.
Takes a very unique person to have that kind of job for 162 games like that.
Oh my gosh. I mean, I meet a lot of football coaches. You can see that from my resume. I sculpted a lot of football coaches. I also really admire them. But the baseball coach, you meet Skip Bertman and you meet Bobby Cox, you're meeting two, and Jerry Coleman, you're meeting three amazing human beings.
Legends with a capital L.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. Well, that's why our job is so cool, man. We're hanging out with people that, especially the manager job, shaping young men to be champions.
Yeah.
Wow. What a privilege that is to do that, right?
Yeah. Without a doubt.
Maybe my next life.
We talked about the pose that you chose already for Bobby's statue. If you wouldn't mind just taking me through the process and the time of building the statue, how that came to be. Did you have an understanding of what, that meant at the time in terms of sculpting Bobby Cox? If you don't mind just talking about the process a little bit.
Well, picking the pose is number one, first and foremost, subject, task, challenge, and then creating that clay model to form itself into something that really not just looks like him, but has the spirit of him. And that sort of lean in his back and the way he's kind of looking over, very subtle, but extremely important for Bobby Cox. So, and then getting that approval from Bobby and from the front office is a process most artists might be scared of. I love that part because that's where I grow. It's where you're uncomfortable. And when you're uncomfortable, you grow. And I love that part. We went back and forth like 20 times.
Well, that was my next question for you, because I feel like it's not always maybe as, communicative or back and forth. I'm sure it depends on the person a little bit, but it does seem like you were able to kind of build a rapport with him over the kind of back and forth that you guys had. Is that right?
I would say I flew to Atlanta 18 times. It meant a lot to me. I admire his body of work is mind-boggling. Just like we're talking about Jerry Coleman. You read about these men and you're like, wow, you did that with your life? That's so impressive. And that team, those teams that he had, what a privilege, right? To be skipper of that crew. And I didn't want to get this wrong. Plus, I love Atlanta. I almost got an office there at one time, doing Dominique, doing Vander Holyfield, and doing Bobby Cox. I'm like, I should probably have an office here. Plus, I like it there. It's a great city.
Okay, so 18 flights. I mean, have you ever done that kind of labor or work for another statue? That's got to be up there for you, right?
2 other times. One for the Broncos. I did everything at Mile High around the whole stadium. And the other is the Rose Bowl. I've done all the statues around Rose Bowl Stadium. Yeah. You ever been to Pasadena?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, what a stadium. Oh, my gosh. It's got that place has magic, and I sculpted Keith Jackson there and Jackie Robinson. I'm trying to do Troy Aikman, but I just did Terry Donahue, who's a UCLA coach, Archie Griffin, and Brandy Chastain sliding in the grass. So, yeah, really, really neat place.
You've done it all, man. You talked about your interactions with Bobby already a little bit. What was he like in those months you got to know him? I mean, obviously you were there for the unveiling with everybody, but what are your kind of lasting impressions of that guy?
When you were one-on-one with Bobby Cox, he gave you 110% of his attention. That is a gift, and I find that to be something with successful coaches, that they can really hone in on the person. And I'm sure you've been with people in a crowd when you're trying to talk to them and they're looking elsewhere and you're like, oh my gosh, I just, if you could only give me 30 seconds, I'll be done. But Bobby would give you his undivided attention and really ultimately made you feel important. And that's a gift.
Without a doubt. And I think that's kind of the common thing that everybody says about the guy is that
Yep.
he was, you know, when you have so many different people saying the same thing, it must be true.
Have you seen the picture with me and him at the dedication and he's looking up at the statue?
I don't think I have.
All right. Is this your cell phone?
I'm on my email right now.
Oh, right. We're doing Zoom.
Yeah.
Did you call me on a cell phone?
Yeah, I got your number here from our news
All right.
director.
I'm going to send that photo to you. It is all world. Man, it's so cool. He's next to me. He might even have his arm around me, and he's looking up at the statue. I'm like, oh my God, what a picture.
That's
So
awesome. We'll be sure to include that in some way. We have a lot of video. Our station was there that day for the unveiling, so I'm sure we have it in some capacity. But...
Yeah. He took a couple of peeks up at it while he was next to me, and that's a treasure too to have someone like that. And he really liked it. And we sat. There's a photo of us sitting in front of it too, and I'm with Carolyn from the front office of the Braves. You know Carolyn? Is it Koch?
Yeah, I'm not sure if she's still there or not.
Oh man, she's a great person too. If it wasn't for her, I wouldn't have done the statue well. There was another gentleman I worked with. I can't remember his name, but Carolyn was really the glue.
That's nice. My last question for you, then feel free to take it wherever you would like. You know, the soundbite that keeps coming up from our coverage that day from Bobby is him saying, "It looks just like me. He got the belly right. He got everything right." I would imagine as an artist, that's just,
so important.
That's the best thing you could hear, right?
It really is. It's the ultimate compliment when the subject matter not just recognizes himself, but is excited about the image that was made, because it's more than a likeness. I'm trying to capture the spirit of the individual in his greatest moment. So as the manager, he was great.
Anything else you want to add, Brian? Anything we didn't hit on?
Go Braves.
Go Braves. I appreciate you taking the time, man.
Yeah, very good. Very good. I'll look out for the report tomorrow night.
Go Braves indeed. And we are getting you ready for all things Braves today, including your First Alert forecast. I'm going to send things over to First Alert meteorologist Rodney Harris with a look ahead to tonight and later this week.
Hey there, everybody. I'm First Alert meteorologist Rodney Harris. Big day today as we have the Braves and the Cubs later on this evening. That first pitch at 7:15. If you are headed out to Truist Park or the Battery before the game, temperatures will be in the low to mid 70s under partly cloudy skies. We're actually going to see mostly cloudy skies throughout the day today, but those clouds are going to start to move out by the evening. So if you're headed out to Cobb County, you'll be in better shape in terms of your sun, seeing more sunshine later on this evening. First pitch 7:15, 71 degrees by the end of the game, 67 degrees. Absolutely no rain in your forecast, so we hope that you can get out there and enjoy that game. We got a lot of Braves games here in store, and I will say that we're about to get into that time of year where temperatures will be like the upper 80s, low 90s. That's going to happen this weekend, so definitely get out there and enjoy this weather that you see on your screen right now. Very pleasant with temperatures in the 70s. We'll keep you up to date on this forecast in our First Alert weather app.
All right, thank you so much, Rodney. We've got a lot more coming up for you here on ANF Plus. Stick with us. We'll be right back. back to Atlanta News First Plus as we continue to follow your top stories and making headlines in and around Metro Atlanta. The man accused of stealing unreleased Beyonce music faced sentencing today after taking a plea deal as his trial was set to get underway. Beyonce's team was in town for her Cowboy Carter tour at the Mercedes-Benz last year, and prosecutors allege Kelvin Evans took jump drives from an SUV last July, stealing a suitcase containing the music, among other things. Now, authorities say the rental car was parked on Krog Street. This morning, attorneys played never-before-seen surveillance footage of that day. We want to show that to you now. Take a look.
Is there any way you can let them know? Thank you. Okay, sorry.
So, Your Honor, had this case gone to trial, the state would have expected the evidence would have shown on or about July 8th of 2025. It really starts on the 7th, in which this defendant's sister rented a vehicle and she loaned it to her daughter. And it was at that point that her daughter gets a phone call around 7 p.m. from the defendant, her uncle. It is at that time that her uncle tells her, hey, my bike has went dead. I need for you to come and pick me up. So what does she do? She goes and picks him up. While she goes and picks him up, he says, let me borrow the car. I need to go to my friend's house. I'll be back in 5 minutes. It is at that particular point that she loans this defendant the car. And as you see, this is the red Hyundai. And this is the car going inside of the parking garage at 44 Krog Street. Once the car enters the parking garage, the car will back into the parking spot next to the 2024 Jeep Wagoneer. That Jeep Wagoneer is the car that's listed in the indictment. The individual exits the car wearing what we believe to be a gray or white baseball cap. He takes off the baseball cap. He goes to the back of the Jeep Wagoneer, looks inside of the car. At this particular time, we believe this is when he notices the items in the trunk. Those items are black suitcases. You would notice that there was just a highlight of the white writing on the front of this particular person's shirt. That will come in handy. This is the person going to the passenger side, shining lights to find more items in the particular vehicle. At some point, there's going to be a blue Tesla that will pull up. At that time, that person will, the person on the video will be seen hiding so that the blue Tesla cannot see him. This is the part where he's hiding. Again, goes back to the back. And now reaches inside of the vehicle and pulls out the bags. He then goes to the driver's side of the car, gets in the car, and leaves. The important part of this is that as the defendant is going to be leaving, what you're about to see is the outside angle, and you're going to see the defendant's hand, which led us to believe that this was a black male. Also, from this particular image, officers were able to get the tag of the particular car, which is how they use license plate readers to track the car. Once they track the car, that's how they come in contact with the defendant's niece, as she is arrested for driving the vehicle. And that's when she tells officers the statements about her uncle essentially asking her, can he use the car for some minutes, and that he was gone for these times. It is at that point that officers then go to 942 Hank Aaron, which is where, I'm going to speed this a little bit faster, which is where at some time shortly you will see the defendant arriving, who we know now to be the defendant, arriving on the bike, wearing the same exact things. He now has a black book bag, which is one of the items that was taken out of the car. He goes up to apartment 13 of this particular address, which is where his sister resides. Just shortly, I'm gonna speed up a little bit. Just shortly, you would see that same individual come back downstairs, and this is when his niece tells us she's waiting for. He calls her because he's aggravated because his items are in the car. He goes up to that same red car that we just watched leave the parking garage. That is him grabbing one of the bags. That is his niece leaving the car. It is at that particular point that you'll see him start to pull out the suitcases. The suitcases that Mr. Grant and Mr. Blue would have testified were their suitcases that were in the back of their truck. They take the suitcases upstairs, and the suitcases were never seen again. The important part of how we know that those suitcases are those suitcases, what the defendant didn't know is that when he took the suitcases, Mr. Grant's MacBook Air and Pro were inside of the suitcase. Therefore, there was a live tracking of the items and the suitcase. So the items are going to be tracked to a 370 North Ave, Hateville, Georgia, which is where this particular defendant resides. And then the items are also tracked to 942 Hank Aaron Drive, which is also the address that we just watched on the video. And then those items are no longer tracked, and that is the last place that we see them. As I mentioned, a day later, the defendant's niece is pulled over. It is at that time she gives those statements. Officers perform a search warrant on the premise. Unfortunately, they were unable to locate those particular items. The defendant does give a statement to officers in which he refers to himself as the king thief of Atlanta, and that he says that somebody came to him and told him what was in the suitcases. However, his niece also gives a statement in which she says, I got an iPhone and I got a lot of chargers from it. The victims would have testified that their iPhones were taken and their multiple chargers. That's the basis for the entering auto and the criminal trespass. As it relates to the defendant's criminal history, the state did file a recidivist notice in this particular case. And the defendant's criminal history, there's an 03 SC 4357 for entering automobile, theft by taking, theft by receiving stolen property out of the cab from 2003. There's an 02 SC 0328, entering automobile, theft by taking out of Fulton, September 16th of 2024. There's an 08 SC 66990, entering automobile, Fulton from 2009. There's an 09 CR 41447, entering automobile out of the cab from 2010. There's a 14 SC 128817, entering automobile out of Fulton from 2015. There is a 14 SC 128805, entering automobile out of Fulton from 2016. There's a 14 SC 125009, entering automobile from 2017. 14 SC 128763, entering automobile from 2017. 16 SC 14005, again, entering automobile from 2017. And a 22 CR 0414, entering automobile out of Forsyth from 2023, which is what the defendant mentioned earlier, that his parole has previously been revoked on. Nothing further from the state, Your Honor.
And And as you saw there, that led into sentencing. Well, Calvin Evans pleaded guilty to entering an automobile with the intent to commit theft and criminal trespass. Now, that was previously a plea deal that he turned down in March. And today, this morning, he reversed that decision, waiving his right to trial and sending the case straight into sentencing. Now, Evans was sentenced to 5 years in prison with 2 served and the rest on probation. He was also ordered to stay away from the victims and the location where the theft happened. You can follow all of these stories with us here on Atlanta News First Plus, and go to atlantanewsfirst.com to get the latest on the headlines that we're following. And just a reminder for you tonight to join us at 6 o'clock, a special half-hour program dedicated to the contributions of Braves legend Bobby Cox that will lead right into our coverage of the Braves home game against the Chicago Cubs, which you can also watch live on Atlanta News First. That all starts at 6:30. Make it a great day. We have continuing coverage for you here on air and online. Atlanta News First News at noon is coming up next.
Thank you for watching ANF Plus. For more breaking news, live coverage, and your community stories, download the Atlanta News First app. You can also watch us on YouTube, Roku, Apple TV, and Fire TV. To join the conversation on YouTube Live, visit our channel and hit subscribe. You can also listen to the Atlanta News First podcast by searching Atlanta News First on your preferred listening platform.